Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scotty.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 105 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Very good, my friend, very good. So, if you've joined us before, you know what to expect. Part 1, of course, is the review part where we talk about the fights from last week, and then we will also bring in one guest, which will be our first guest before part 1 ends. And then in part 2, we will talk about the fights coming up this weekend in what we call the preview part. And then, of course, we will close out the show with another guest, a second guest, and that will wrap up part 2, and that will wrap up what we've got in store for you this week. It's the same as every week, really. I'm just explaining that to the first time listeners that may or may not be with us right now. So let's start with the review, and of course there's a few things to go over. There was 2 shows that I actually went to last week. I was at one on Friday, I was at one on Saturday, but before we go on to those dates there was a card that happened on Thursday the 12th of October, just one fight to mention over in France. Even Mendy, 38-4 with 1 draw, moved to 39-4 with 1 draw. A 10-round unanimous decision against Florian Montels, a man I didn't know really too much about. Moving over now to the roller world in Derby, Derbyshire, United Kingdom. Jordan Gill moved to 18-0. He had his man down twice in that fight, but it was a 6th-round points win for Jordan Gill. So his opponent was Rafael Castillo. His record was 14-34. He's now 14-35. He's got 3 draws also. That's a bit of a journeyman there. I want to see Jordan Gill step up a little bit now. Moving over now to York Hall. This was the JD Next Gen card. I was there in attendance for this one. London, of course, the mecca of boxing. I really do love a York Hall card. And what I've got to say about this card in particular is every time I go to York Hall, there's always one unbelievable fight. And, I was waiting for the fight to happen because the fights weren't, they were okay, but there wasn't really any barn burners, and it literally left the barn burner till last. So, it really put the cherry on top of the cake there for me, to end the night with such a brilliant fight that we will talk about in just a moment. Starting on this bill, Harlem Eubank moved to 2-0. It's the first time I've seen him fight. That was quite, he had a quite exciting style, really, like, he's got the name Eubank, of course. He was showboating. He did a front flip over the ropes. I think he did a back flip at the end of the fight. He managed to win a points win over 4 rounds against an unbeaten fighter called Michael Green, who was 2-0. So Harlem Eubank now moves to 2-0 himself. Michael Green now 2-1. It was a decent performance. He was very flashy. He's got a lot of swagger about his work, really. But no, he was good. He was actually really good. It was promising stuff to see from someone who's only 1-0. Let's not forget, Chris Eubank Jr. was there in attendance. He was sitting right behind me, so much so that I took a selfie and he basically accidentally photobombed it. That was funny. That's it from that one. Moving over now to Natasha Jonas. The beauty and the beast in one, I call her. She moved to 3-0. It was a TKO in round 3 against Mariana Gulias, who had a record of 14-26, now 14-27. But apparently I haven't looked at her record, but apparently she'd actually challenged for a world title and also challenged for a European title. Now, she was absolutely awful. She was absolutely awful to the point where people ringside, who I didn't even know, were sitting next to me. And I was talking to some people that I did know, And people were saying, you know, they were jumping in our conversation to say, this is really bad. I mean, this is terrible. I mean, you know, someone, I'm not going to name who, but someone said this could possibly be the worst fighter that's ever fought in the York Hall over all the years, because it cannot be much worse than this. This woman, I feel really sorry for her. You know, she came and took an absolute pasting, and like I say, she was stopped in that third round. She didn't need to go 6. Nobody wanted to see that. She was down a couple of times. She was just absolutely terrible. She had no defense at all. She was taking punches flush. You know, she was just absolutely terrible. Honestly, I don't even understand how she could have ever been in contention to fight for a title. She was so bad. She couldn't defend herself. Her guard was just terrible. I think maybe a 3 or 4 year old kid could have probably hit her through her guard. It was terrible. Her punches were falling like miles short. She was just taking backhands repeatedly. She didn't move her head. She was just... I cannot express how bad this woman was. And I know I'm not trying to, you know, have a go at women's boxing. I've said this a few times. You know, I'm in support of that. If they want to do it, it's fine. You know, a level playing field. But this was absolutely horrible to watch. You know, it was hard to watch, and I was just glad when they waved it off, because it was just terrible. I mean, give the woman credit. She's obviously tough. I hope she got paid a decent amount, though I doubt she did. But no, she didn't want it to stop, and she's obviously a bit of a warrior. And after the fight, she came out and ended up sitting in about 6 or 7 rows back, just watching the rest of the night's action. But yeah, that wasn't entertainment at all. That was horrible to watch. Also on the bill, Ted Cheeseman, he moved to 11-0 with a KO in round 5 against a man who was 20-9 with 1 draw, so that's a bit of a step up there. But to be honest, I didn't really know much about this guy, and I don't really know how to pronounce that name. I think it was a late opponent confirmation. I think it was a little bit of a late one there, a little bit last minute. William Webber, he was 1-0. I think he's had quite an extensive amateur career. He took on a guy called Eric Israel, who was making his debut. So it was a bit of a strange one, because I remember seeing William Webber, he's a southpaw. I remember seeing him make his debut a few weeks ago, and I thought, oh, he's out, you know, pretty quickly again in his second fight here. And yeah, he came out. He's technically quite good. And Eric Israel, who, again, we'd never seen nothing of. I don't think he had any amateur background whatsoever. And the story behind him is, he basically came to the UK from Africa just to go to uni. And he wound up in a boxing gym, and I think he was kind of inspired and motivated and decided to just take up a bit of boxing. And his family back in Africa, because he literally lives in the UK, and he's got no family, no friends over here, nothing. His family back in Africa have got no idea that he's taken up boxing at all. And he actually obviously fought here, made his debut, and ended up knocking out prospect William Webber in the second round. In the third round, and he had him down in the second round. Now, what actually happened here is, I don't know, for those that may have seen it, may have not seen it, I'm just going to tell you what I saw. Basically, William Webber was probably winning that second round, and then he got knocked down. It was a really, really short hook. I think it may have been a right hook or something like that, and he just got put down, and unfortunately he lost that round 10-8. Now, coming out in the third round, there was a moment where the referee called break, and when he called break, William Webber wasn't defending himself, and Eric Israel threw a big punch, and it kind of stumbled William Webber. Now, the referee jumped in, told Eric Israel off a little bit, but he didn't actually give William Webber enough time to recuperate. He waved it straight back on. Now, 10 seconds later, Eric Israel drops William Webber to his knees, but William Webber jumps straight back up. But in the rule book, of course, if you go down on a knee, or your gloves touch the canvas, I think maybe both of those things happened in this situation. Once the boxer gets back up, the referee jumps in and gives him a 10 count. Okay, that did not happen. He jumped straight back up. The referee, he was just terrible. I can't remember his name. He's an old guy with grey hair. He's barely got any hair. I've seen him a few times make mistakes. This was awful. Like I say, when he tried to stop the fight before, when he said stop boxing, and when he called break, in the first time when Eric Israel landed a punch when he shouldn't have, I was actually watching him when I got home. I watched it in slow motion, and instead of jumping in between them with his body, he just waved his hand like he was waving at someone at ringside. A silly little wave of his hand, like a rotation on the wrist. It's no good. That's they're not even going to see that happening. He's an old guy, and he's just awful. He needs to be suspended, I think, because this is not the first time. So anyway, he doesn't give William Webber a 10 count, even though he should have. So William Webber jumps straight back up, probably trying to avoid getting another 10-8 round scored against him. But it doesn't matter. The referee should have jumped in. Rules are rules. And then literally he walks straight onto one and gets brutally knocked out. Now, firstly, that could have been avoided if he would have given the guy time to recuperate when he was hit when he shouldn't have. That's one thing. But then maybe he would have still got knocked down. That's another thing. Why didn't the referee give him a 10 count? It was just unbelievable bad refereeing. I feel very sorry for William Webber, but listen, he may have lost the fight anyway. You cannot take nothing away from Eric Israel, who really seemed like a real cool guy after the fight. Like I say, he told the story about his family doesn't even know he's boxing. He doesn't even really want them to know, so hopefully they don't type his name into YouTube and see that, because it was pretty brutal, that one. But no, a really impressive win for him. I'm really pleased for him. And William Webber, after the great amateur career that he had, it's not looking good for him. 1-1 after 2 fights. But that's it for that one. Also moving up the bill now, Isaac Chamberlain proceeded to 9-0. A TKO in round 6 against Ozzy Jervier, who was 4-4 going in, now 4-5. Ozzy Jervier actually took Wadi Camacho the distance, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he lost that fight just by a thread. It was very, very close. Obviously, Isaac Chamberlain beat Wadi Camacho over points, so it was good to actually see him stop Ozzy Jervier, and Ozzy Jervier came into the fight with late notice, so I've got to give him credit on that one. But also, Isaac Chamberlain actually told me after the fight that he arrived to the venue and 30 minutes later he was expected to be in the ring. And I actually said, because he didn't really look right for the first few rounds, in my opinion. He kind of took quite a while to get into the fight, and that was what it was. But that's a little inside story there. Of course, he was expecting to fight an unbeaten cruiserweight, and he ended up taking on this guy at short notice who was in good shape, and he was a real stubborn guy, Ozzy Jervier. He came and gave a good account of himself, to be honest. Now, moving on to the main event.
I've just got one thing to say about Isaac Chamberlain.
Go on.
He's a fighter that keeps on improving. Obviously, we've seen him fight now. At the start of his career, right, yeah, he had what? He's had 9 fights, right? At the first 4 start of his fights, right, he was getting points to win. Now he's getting a bit of a knockout. He's starting to win a lot of his fights by knockouts and TKOs. Every time I see Isaac Chamberlain fight, I always keep seeing he keeps on improving. His defense has gone much better now, yeah, and his ring craft is improving. I'll tell you what, yeah, every time Isaac Chamberlain keeps fighting, he keeps on improving.
Yeah, I think he saw that world-class sparring he's been doing. Obviously, we know that he's been out in Ukraine sparring Usyk. He recently sparred in Ireland against Mike Perez. He sparred Wilder, he sparred Joshua, he sparred just about everybody. That guy really is learning the craft behind closed doors. But now the main event, the fight that I told everybody a few moments ago, was an absolute barn burner. It was the last fight on, of course, the main event. Jason Cunningham, 23-3, putting his Commonwealth featherweight title on the line against the undefeated 10-0 Reece Bellotti. Of course, this was undoubtedly Reece Bellotti's toughest test on paper, and we need to see him stepped up. Obviously, this was the step up, and it was a hard fight to call, because obviously Jason Cunningham's no mug, and Reece Bellotti, we hadn't seen him fight at that level despite him looking really good. He's been knocking people out. He's quite an exciting fighter for a featherweight, I suppose. And to be completely honest, the start of the fight, Jason Cunningham was winning hands down. I don't think you could say he won every round up until the 6th, but I think maybe 4 rounds to 1. Maybe if you were being quite generous to Bellotti, maybe 3 rounds to 2. Reece Bellotti was, his nose was blooded. I think that's probably the first time he's been cut, if I'm not mistaken. He looked a little bit troubled by the cut. He was being beaten up a little bit, to be completely honest. He was just, you could see who was the more experienced guy in there, and Jason Cunningham was being very clever on the night. But in the 5th round, I think it was the 5th round, Reece Bellotti dropped him. And that was a massive turning point in the fight, because I remember when I was sitting there ringside, and again, the atmosphere in York Hall is just second to none. It's probably my favourite boxing venue to go to. So yeah, he dropped him in the 5th round, and I thought, wow, this is big when you look at the points, because he was down a few rounds, and I think that 10-8 round was, that really was really helping him out at that stage. And then of course, Jason Cunningham comes out in the 6th round, and Reece Bellotti stops him in brutal fashion, and the place just erupted. It was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Every time I go to York Hall, there's always something unbelievable. You've got to kind of pinch yourself. Did that just happen? And that was what it was like. And I came straight home and I watched that fight back, and I never do that. I never ever actually go to a fight and then rewatch it at home. I just don't have the time. But I did actually watch it back, and to be honest, on TV I don't think it looked as good as what it felt like being there amongst the atmosphere. So but believe me, it was really, really good. But I've heard other people that were watching it on TV say it was really good too, so maybe it just wasn't as good second time round because I was there. I don't know, but it was a brilliant win nonetheless for Reece Bellotti. To come from behind to stop a guy in the mid rounds there in brutal fashion. Reece Bellotti now 11-0, and he's the new Commonwealth featherweight champion. Jason Cunningham back to the drawing board for him at 23-4 now. Moving over now to the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California. I'm going to try to whiz through this one. Pablo Cesar Cano 30-6 with 1 draw going in, took on Marcelino Nicolas Lopez. I don't know nothing about him, but what I do know is he actually upset the apple cart here. A KO in round 2 for Marcelino Nicolas Lopez, and he stops Pablo Cesar Cano there. It was a bit of a mad 2 rounds. Lopez was cut on his right eye. Cano was cut on his left eye. They were both from legal punches there. Cano was down in round 2. He beat the count, but he couldn't continue, and he was out on his feet. It was called off. Also on that bill, Fidel Maldonado Jr., 24-3 with 1 draw, took on Ismael Barroso, a man that we've been not too sure on. How good really is he? Well, he got in there against Maldonado, and he scored a knockout in round 6, so a huge upset there in the United States. 2 home fighters both beaten by a knockout there. That's a bad night there in the Fantasy Springs Casino. Maldonado was down in round 3 and down and out from a body shot in round 6. So Ismael Barroso's probably took a little bit of Anthony Croller's tactics there and started throwing a few powerful body shots. Maldonado was also deducted a point for holding and hitting in round 4, and he was cut under the right eye from a punch in round 5. So it was pretty bad early on for Fidel Maldonado Jr. His record now 24-4 with 1 draw, and Ismael Barroso moves to his 20th professional win. His record now 20-1 with 2 draws. Moving over now to Queensland, Australia at the Convention and Exhibition Centre. One fight to mention over here that went under the radar a little bit. Alex Leapai, he returned to the ring, I think maybe from about 2 years out, if I'm not mistaken. His record 30-7 with 3 draws. He took on Thomas Pito, who was 2-5, and Thomas Pito was down in round 3 and out, so a TKO there for Alex Leapai. Moving over now to France once again. There was one fight to mention. We had his promoter on the show last week. Tony Yoka, he moved to 2-0 with a unanimous decision win over 6 rounds against Jonathan Rice, who was 7-2 with 1 draw. Also on that bill, I'm sad to say that Ahmed Al Masoui, who was 26-3 with 1 draw, took on former world champion Carlos Molina, who I do like. He's been on the show before. He's the guy that we had on that bizarre interview, and we were talking about his boxing career in America, and he seemed so upset about the fact that he'd been deported to Mexico. That was a mad interview, but he's a good guy, Carlos Molina, but it wasn't his night. He went over to France and lost a unanimous decision over 10 rounds, pretty wide as well. Carlos Molina there at welterweight. Of course, he's the former super welterweight champion. He's gone down in weight, but his record now 28-8 with 2 draws. It's not really looking too good for him. That might be the end of his road. Moving over now to Germany, in a place that I cannot pronounce. There was one fight to mention over here. Francesco Pianetta, 4-2 with one draw. Pianeta got stopped, I remember, by Vladimir Klitschko for the world title a few years back. He took on Kevin Kingpin Johnson, 31-8 with one draw. It was for the IBO International Heavyweight title. Would you believe it? The Kingpin Kevin Johnson pulls off the upset and TKOs Francesco Pianeta in round 7. It's a mad thing with Kevin Johnson. You really don't know which version of him is going to turn up. He is quite an unpredictable character. He's a funny guy too. We like him here. His record now 32-8 with one draw. Francisco Pianeta 34-3 with one draw. Moving over now to the Robin Park Centre in Wigan, Lancashire. One fight to mention on this one as well. Haroon Khan moved to 7-0 with a KO in round 2 against a man who was 13-6 with one draw. Haroon Khan, I never understand why he was out the ring for about 3 years. I will never understand why he was out the ring for that long. It makes no sense, but he really needs to get moving now, but he's still only very young. Moving over now to the Wembley Arena in Wembley, London, the World Boxing Super Series card. I was there in attendance for this one as well. This was on the Saturday. A couple fights to mention on this bill. It wasn't a great card, in all honesty. It was the undercard was pretty poor. I've got to be completely honest about that. What I will mention, though, Nathaniel Wilson, which is actually the son of Chris Eubank. It's obviously Chris Eubank's other sons are all like mixed raced, and this son is full black, and he actually looks a hell of a lot like Chris Eubank Sr. So anyway, Nathaniel Wilson was on this bill. His record going in 4-0 with one draw. He took on Johnny Phillips, who some people were saying was a journeyman. He was 1-1. I'm not sure you could say he's a journeyman, just that quickly. He's now 2-1 because he actually beat Nathaniel Wilson by knockout in the first round. A humongous upset there. All the Eubanks were there in attendance. I don't think Eubank Sr. was there, but Eubank Jr. was there. His brothers were there. I don't know if that was to watch George Groves and Jamie Cox fight, or if it was to have a little glimpse at their half-brother, or if they even talked to their half-brother. I've got no idea, but that was quite a shock there. A shock upset loss there. And Nathaniel Wilson now 4-1 with one draw. It's not looking good for him. And Johnny Phillips turns it round. He's now 2-1. Credit to him. Also on that bill, what else have we got? Louis Adolphe got disqualified in round 1 for knocking Nathan McIntosh down after referee Howard Foster called break. So Nathan McIntosh now 14-2 despite being knocked down. It was quite brutal. Louis Adolphe loses his unbeaten record by disqualification, so he's now 7-1. After the fight, all the fans were booing Adolphe. They didn't like the move that he pulled off, and he decided to flip the bird, as they say. Decided to stick both of his middle fingers up at the crowd and start twirling around like some ballet dancer, making sure everybody saw his middle finger in the crowd. Also on the bill, John Ryder. He was on the show last week, and I've got to be completely honest, I really love John Ryder, but he was up against it big time in this fight. When I saw how highly ranked Patrick Nielsen was, when I saw he was WBA #1 ranked contender, I really thought that it was a tough ask for John Ryder, and in my heart of hearts I thought that John Ryder may get another L on his record here, but I was so wrong. John Ryder went out in the first round and he was a man on a mission, simple as that really. Nielsen was down in the second round and again in the fifth. I know that John knocked him down so bad that he's, he hit him so hard that his gum shield flew out of his mouth. It was absolutely destructive stuff from John Ryder. I'm so pleased for him because he's a real good guy. His record now 25-4. Patrick Nielsen now 29-2. A KO in round 5 for John Ryder. I honestly cannot put into words how happy I am about that. What a brilliant win, and hopefully he gets world ranked now.
I've got something to say as well on for that, Joey.
Go on.
Right, this fight with John Ryder, it was, for me, in my opinion, it was like a lot of people wrote him off for this fight, right? And a lot of people said it was a make and break fight. But to be honest, he actually shocked a lot of people in the boxing world when he beat him. Even myself, when I saw him, how he beat him, right, it was quite bad as well. And after the fight, if you see his opponent, he's like an oxygen mask as well.
Yeah, it was brutal. It was just nothing but brutal. It was a brilliant performance. Like I say, John Ryder, since moving up to 168, has almost kind of got a new lease of life. You know, he's been brilliant. He really has. But I'm so pleased for him. Like I say, his record now 25-4. Hopefully, we see him in another big fight. Also, now the main event. Going on to the main event. Firstly, what I will say, the production of the show at the World Boxing Super Series is absolutely brilliant. The lighting is brilliant. It was great to go and see it, you know, right in front of my eyes rather than on the TV. What I will say though is the fights in the crowd, and I don't want this to go on for long, I just want to spend 30 seconds on this. The fights in the crowd was just crazy. I mean, I've been at loads and loads and loads of boxing fights, and you know, sometimes it does kick off in the crowd, but this time it was worse than I've ever seen in one night. And I mean that, like, you know, in terms of, it was kicking off more times than any other boxing match that I've been to. I mean, I went to the Copper Box a few months back when it was all the riots going off, and that was the worst thing I've ever seen. You know, that can't be topped, in my opinion. It couldn't have been worse. But what I mean is, there's been the odd fight here and there at boxing. This time there was maybe 6 or 7, maybe even 8 or 9 actual individual fights, probably during the last 2 fights, which was the John Ryder fight and the George Groves fight. During those 2 fights, we even missed John Ryder's first knockdown because everybody was looking over our shoulders at a fight erupting in the crowd. You know, that was quite crazy. People throwing beers. You know, something needs to happen about this. I saw one guy kicking off with, with another guy. It was mad because 2 guys were kicking off, and one of them had a girlfriend with him, and his girlfriend was pulling him back, trying to sort of, trying to get him out of the trouble kind of thing. And then it cooled down. And then we carried on watching the fight, and about 1 or 2 rounds later, everybody's turning round. I've turned round and I've seen it's the same guy kicking off with this other guy. And, you know, the guy's girlfriend's trying to pull him back. And anyway, basically, let me just say this. The guy who was with the girl, I think he was like an Asian guy maybe, and the guy that he was, having a fight with at this point was like a big, stocky, white fella, quite fat. And the white fella kind of grabbed him by the collar and started pounding him with his other hand, like punching him in the head repeatedly. And the Asian guy kind of couldn't get loose of the of the hold that the stocky guy had on him. So he wasn't getting any punches off at all, and he was just getting hit in the head right in front of his girlfriend. And then his girlfriend's trying to pull him away, and then somebody shoved him onto his girlfriend, and his girlfriend's in high heels. She falls on the floor. The guy ends up on top of his girlfriend, with all his head punched up and all that. It was just, this is ridiculous, man. I couldn't believe it when I see that. You just don't know if you could be right in between them, or you could be that guy. I don't know how it started. The guy with a girlfriend may have started it all and deserved it to a certain extent, but his girlfriend's on the floor now. It's just, it's just disgusting, really. And then when that all happened, some Asian guy that was about 2 rows behind me just finds it a fantastic moment to pick up his pint of beer, launch it into the crowd, and he hits some old man straight in the chest. Just an old man who had nothing to do with anything, who was just simply there with a friend of his who was also about 75, and he gets hit straight in the stomach, and all over his shirt's a nice pint of beer, and the Asian kid's laughing. It's just, what is going on? It's just, it always seems to be in the cheap seats this is happening, because I actually wasn't sat in the media bit, even though I was given a media seat. I applied a little bit late, so they actually put me in with these people that were just just turning it into a hell show, to be honest. So yeah, the less said the better on that, but something needs to happen for sure. It was terrible. I've seen a video of a few stewards actually jumping over the fence like they're going to stop the fight, and then jumping back over the fence to run away. That's just, what are these people doing? I don't know. Who's employing them? Sort it out, please. Moving over now to the main event. George Groves defending his WBA Super World Super Middleweight title. This, of course, the quarter-final of the World Boxing Super Series tournament as super middleweight. George Groves 26-3 going in against Jamie Cox 24-0. The 2 guys knew each other a long time ago. George Groves' ring walk was really good. I really enjoyed that. It was a brilliant fight while it lasted. I think if it went on a few more rounds, it could have been contender for fight of the year. Jamie Cox, I think he lost the first round. Then I think he won the second round. Then I think George Groves won the third round. And then, of course, in that fourth round, Jamie Cox got knocked out, and it was by a body shot. Now, I haven't watched it back, but being there, it seemed like George Groves kind of threw it was almost like an uppercut to the body. It kind of like hit Jamie Cox right underneath one of his pecs. That's kind of how it looked to me. Have you watched the stoppage, Ayaz? Can you shed any light on that at all?
Yes,
or have I got that right?
I've actually seen the fight. I was watching it. And
it was a great fight, wasn't it?
It was let me tell you, it was a brilliant fight. I'll tell you something, right? Jamie Cox, yeah, he was giving it to George Groves in that fight, right? A lot of boxing people, other boxing world say George Groves he's got one of the best jabs in boxing, right? In that fight, if you can see, yeah, George Groves was throwing that when Jamie Cox was throwing and hitting him, George Groves was throwing that jab, and every time George Groves was throwing that jab, it was actually landing on Jamie, and obviously like every time Jamie was hitting him, landing on the thing. Right, it came towards obviously when it was a fourth round when he got stopped. Right, George Groves was on the ropes, right, and Jamie Cox was hitting him. He left his body open, and what happened? Right, George Groves hit him right. It's like towards his stomach near the ribs, and hit him by the ribs, and that's how he dropped.
Yeah, I mean, obviously going into the fight, we've been told so many times about how hard Jamie Cox punches, and also we've been told that Groves is a bit chinny. Firstly, I don't really think Groves is a bit chinny, and I also don't think that Jamie Cox is the puncher that we've all been told to believe. I don't think led to believe, because I don't think most of us believe it. But one thing Eddie Hearn did say on Fight Week was that George Groves hasn't actually fought people with big punches since Carl Froch. Now, obviously, if you actually look at these records, he took on Christopher Rabras, he can't punch. Dennis Douglin, he took him on, he's actually got the same knockout percentage as Jamie Cox. He took on Badu Jack. Badu Jack has got the same knockout percentage as Jamie Cox. He took on Andrea Di Luisa, that Italian guy. He's actually got a higher knockout percentage than Jamie Cox. Yeah, he took on David Brophy. He's not a big puncher. He took on Martin Murray. Martin Murray's not a big puncher. He took on Edward Gutnech. Edward Gutnech has a decent knockout ratio, but it's not the best. He took on Fedor Chudanov. Fedor Chudanov's got a really good knockout ratio, despite Eddie Hearn actually naming him as, not a big puncher. He's got a bigger punch ratio than a bigger knockout ratio than Jamie Cox. Jamie Cox is now, his knockout ratio now is 52%. So that's not a big puncher, let's be honest. So I don't think he's as big of a puncher as what they say, but apparently he can still make middleweight, so maybe he should go back down there. But I like Jamie Cox. He didn't disgrace himself, no way. Like I say, I think he won one of the 3 rounds. Like I say, it was the Groves round, then a Cox round, then a Groves round, and who knows what would have happened down the stretch. But he didn't get a chance to get into the later rounds. It was a brilliant fight. It was a complete firefight, and like I say, it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those fights you couldn't take your eyes off, and it was impressive from George Groves. But I think it would have been interesting if it got into the later part of the fight. But Jamie Cox took a few good punches. I think he's got a good chin. Like I say, wasn't stopped with a facial punch. It was a body shot. It was a really good body shot as well. So you can't really fault Jamie Cox there. But credit to George Groves. He now takes on Chris Eubank Jr. in the next round. We'll talk about that nearer the time. Moving over now to the StubHub Center, Carson, California, USA. I'm actually going to just fly through this. I'm not even going to read out or try to read into the fights, what I should say. Eddie Ramirez was 17-0. He took on Antonio DeMarco, thinking that he could put a name on his win streak. No. Antonio DeMarco picked up a shocking first round KO, a humongous upset there. Eddie Ramirez stopped standing and defenseless. That was a KO there. Eddie Ramirez now 17-1. Unbelievable stuff there from Antonio DeMarco to roll back the clock, so to speak. His record now 33-6 with 1 draw inside 40 fights. Leo Santa Cruz defended his WBA Super World Featherweight title against Chris Avalos. It was a KO in round 8 of 12. Leo Santa Cruz now 34-1 with 1 draw. Chris Avalos 27-6. I'm not going to read into that at all. It was a rubbish fight in my honest opinion. Abner Mares was made to look $1 million against somebody who was quite limited, I think. I don't really rate that Andres Gutierrez too much. His record now 35-2 with 1 draw, and Abner Mares is 31-2 with 1 draw. Of course, Mares defended successfully his WBA World Featherweight title. Gutierrez was cut from a legal punch in round 2. The bout was stopped in round 10 from a cut left eye that opened from accidental fouls in the 8th round, apparently. So it was a technical decision over 10 rounds for Abner Mares. That was what it was. But no, both opponents there took a right beating. There was a lot of blood. Moving over now to the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York, USA. Credit to Sky, by the way, for showing us both cards. I don't think it was particularly their fault that the 2 fights that they showed, or the 3 fights that they showed from the StubHub Center card weren't good fights, but these were good fights. Moving over to the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York. 1 fight I'm going to mention on the 2 fights I'm going to mention on the undercard before I talk about the televised fights. Tony Harrison, of course, he lost out recently for the vacant IBF world title to Jarrett Hurd. Tony Harrison picked up a win. It was a unanimous decision win over 8 rounds against Paul Valenzuela Jr., who was 20-5, now 20-6. Tony Harrison now 25-2. Cindy Serrano, that's the sister of Amanda Serrano. That's 2 fighting sisters from Puerto Rico. Cindy Serrano actually won a split decision over 8 2-minute rounds against Adina Kiss. I think that may have been an opponent of somebody over here, maybe Katie Taylor. I can't really think. Cindy Serrano actually won a split decision, but apparently one of the judges who gave it to Adina Kiss, it was so bad, that card, that they're actually trying to maybe get that judge suspended, because apparently it was pretty much a shutout. From what I've heard there. So Cindy Serrano now 27-5 with 3 draws. Also on the bill, Erislandy Lara. This was the main event, but let's get this one out of the way first. Erislandy Lara 24-2 with 2 draws going on. Took on undefeated Olympian Terrell Gausha. We had him on the show a few weeks ago. It was for the IBO and WBA Super welterweight titles. Terrell Gausha was knocked down in the 4th round. To be honest, he just couldn't really get into the fight. I think maybe he only won about 1 or 2 rounds down the whole stretch. He just couldn't get into it. He wasn't doubling up on the jab. He was throwing singular shots. When he was throwing, Erislandy Lara was getting out of range very quickly and stepping back into range to land his own shots. It was clever stuff. It was slick stuff from Erislandy Lara. Probably, again, I've said it before, he's probably the number 1 guy at 154. And, unlucky for Terrell Gausha, really. He will learn a lot from that fight, but stylistically, Erislandy Lara's a bad matchup for anybody, really. So you can't really blame him for that. By the way, what I will say while I remember, we did the prediction leagues, of course, last week. Now, I went with Groves to win by knockout. You went with Groves to win on points, and I think our listeners also went with Groves by knockout. So I gain a point. Our listeners gain a point. Our listeners also went with Hurd to win by knockout. We're going to talk about this fight in a minute. And our listeners also went with Charlo to win by knockout. So they got all 3 of their predictions right. I went with Erickson Lubin to win. Boy, oh boy, that went wrong. You actually went with Charlo to win by knockout as well, Ayaz. So the new scores, even though we're going to talk about the fights in just a second, the new scores is I'm on 7, you're on 7, and the listeners have overtook us there in 8. So we really need to step our game up. But going back to the fight, just wanted to do that while I remembered. Erislandy Lara now 25-2 with 2 draws. Terrell Gausha handed up his first loss. He's lost his unbeaten record. He's now 20-1. So, a good win there for Erislandy Lara. But to be honest, he didn't look too good. I mean, it's pretty boring, let's be honest. But, he's very effective what he does. He's a Cuban, let's just say that. Moving up the bill, Jamel Charlo, 29-0, put his WBC World Super Welterweight title on the line against Erickson Lubin. Lubin was the young prospect coming up. Lubin, obviously, 18-0. You know, he's been a bit of a prospect. He's been touted as the next thing for quite a while. I believed in the hype a little bit, and I thought that he could possibly outbox Jermell Charlo, because in my honest opinion, I think Jermell Charlo can be outboxed, because we saw that from John Jackson until he got stopped and walked onto a silly shot. So yeah, I actually thought that Lubin may have had the pedigree, you know, amateur-wise, pro-wise, to be able to take this into the later part of the fight and possibly give Charlo a little bit of a boxing lesson, because I think Charlo is a good boxer, but I think he can be outboxed by someone who's, you know, a really, really good boxer. But yeah, I was so wrong. It didn't even really give us any chance to even think about it. There was a KO in round 1, a humongous statement there for Jermell Charlo. What a way to move to 30-0. He defends his WBC World Super Welterweight title successfully there. Lubin was out. It was a brutal knockout. Lubin's record now 18-1. Do you want to add anything to that, Ayaz, or should I go straight on to the main event?
Just got to say one quick thing, elaborate on that. What an uppercut for Jermell Charlo. The way he uppercutted him, it's like, last 2 fights I've seen of him, he's been knocking out people. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say. What a brilliant knockout. Well done to Jermell Charlo.
Yeah, he's certainly turned into, you know, a humongous puncher lately. You know, just like his older brother, he's obviously noted for a big bang, and Jermell Charlo's been laying people out lately, as you alluded to just there. Also, not the main event, but one of the fights. What a fight this was, by the way. Jarrett Hurd, 20-0, successfully defended his IBF World Super Welterweight title against Austin Trout. Austin Trout, 30-3. It was Austin Trout's corner that pulled him out of the fight after 10 rounds. But let's talk about this fight itself. Austin Trout started the fight very, very well. Austin Trout was actually fighting the wrong fight, really, but I think it was because the pace that Jarrett Hurd had set. Austin Trout, you know, what I was quite surprised about is Austin Trout, he doesn't really possess the power, which was a real shame, because I think that if he did have a bit of snap in his punches, he possibly could have hurt Jarrett Hurd. I don't really think Jarrett Hurd was hurt at all. He was so much of a smaller guy, Austin Trout. You could see the size difference was massively in Hurd's favour. Obviously, we know Austin Trout's been out the ring for a while as well. He's coming off a long layoff. This fight's been pushed back a couple of times. It hasn't really been Austin Trout's fault. Austin Trout was able to find Jarrett Hurd so many times with the straight left hand, which I couldn't believe. You know, Jarrett Hurd was just walking onto his straight left hand. Obviously, Austin Trout landed a good amount of uppercuts, as I said. And, you know, he did really well. He was winning a few of those early rounds. He won a few in a row, to be completely honest. I actually predicted Trout to win on points. I think you did as well, Ayaz. And this is where our listeners, you know, got the prediction right. But no, you know, he just gassed too early, man. I mean, he gassed after about 5 rounds, and from that point onwards, he was just an accident waiting to happen. And I think that, you know, credit to Hurd, because he's got a good gas tank. I think he's proven that a couple times now. And I just thought, you know, I felt really, really sorry for Austin Trout, because I think that's probably his last chance at a world title, I think. Even though, you know, he's only 30-4 and he's only lost to really good fighters. He only lost to world champions, but I think that he probably won't get another shot. I'm not quite sure what he's going to do himself with his career, but I think if he was going to beat one of the champions, that'd probably be the champion that he could possibly beat. And, you know, he just didn't have it in the tank. He just ran out of steam. But that could be down to the inactivity. It could be down to the age. I just don't know. It's hard to really gauge what's going on with him. But, no, I felt very sad for him, man. He's a good guy. I think he's actually, I'm sure he was like the first world champion we've ever had on this show. So I've always, you know, been a fan of his really since that happened. And, you know, I remember speaking to him back in 2015 and, you know, it's just a shame it hasn't really worked out for him since then, to be honest. He's had some bad luck, Austin Trout, but we wish him all the very best for the future. And credit to Jarrett Hurd, you know, he hung in there. He was losing the rounds. He didn't seem to lose his head at all. I think he might have even been cut as well, you know, and then he managed to just knuckle down, stick to his boxing a little bit, which he wasn't the superior boxer out of the two. Austin Trout was, but he didn't panic. He stuck with it, and like I say, ultimately it looked like he was going to stop Austin Trout, and then Austin Trout's corner probably pulled him out at the right time, really, because he'd absolutely emptied out his gas tank, emptied out his second wind. He had nothing left, Austin Trout. And like I say, credit to him, a real warrior performance, after such a long layoff, so much inactivity, to pull that out of the bag. He deserves a lot of credit, but unfortunately, coming second best in a two-man race doesn't really amount to nothing. So all the very best to Jarrett Hurd and Austin Trout. Jarrett Hurd now 21-0, perfect record. And that's really it with the reviewing. Sorry that's taken so long. We really got to learn to try and get through these things a little bit quicker. Lately we've just been dragging on a little bit too much. But just before we wrap up part one, of course, there's one last thing to do, and that, of course, is to welcome guest number one. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Great Britain's very own 2016 Olympic silver medalist, and also a man set to make his debut this weekend in the professional ranks. It's, of course, Mr. Joe Joyce. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hey, it's my pleasure having you on. How are you feeling today, Joe?
Yeah, very good. Finished training, did some sharp work on the pads, and just ready, and just can't wait for my fight Friday night.
Okie dokie. So, first things first, I want to quickly just recap on your Olympic success. Last year, you obviously won the silver medal in Rio, losing a split decision in the final to Tony Yoka. Now, I thought you won that fight quite clearly. The judges didn't see it the way I saw it. What did you make of that fight, and how clear was it for you, Joe?
Well, I thought the fight was all in my hands, and I thought I was landing the shots and putting shots through his guard and through his body and everywhere, like landing. And after the first round, I was thinking, oh, okay. The coach was speaking to me and that, and I thought, And then, I went and upped it again for the second round and, landing more shots. And I got back, and my coach Lee was like, Joe, you're two rounds down. I was thinking, oh, what's going on here? So then the third round, I came out all guns blazing again, and I thought I punched him up, and he was doing the alley shuffle and being all cocky, and I thought I'd won the fight. I thought I beat him comfortably, but I didn't get the decision.
Yeah, it was a bad decision in my opinion. Not the only one at that Olympics, by the way, but the less said the better on that. So obviously you've decided to turn pro. Now, before we get on to your first fight, you've signed a promotional contract with Haymaker Ringstar, a company owned by both Richard Schaefer and David Haye. We had Richard on our show last week, and he made it clear during the interview that he's extremely excited about your development as a pro. Firstly though, Joe, how did it all come about? Why Haymaker Ringstar, and were you always going to definitely turn pro after last year?
Yeah, of course, winning the Olympic silver medal, the next step is obviously to start invading the pros, and I had a lot of time trying to make my decision. It was very hard because I had so many offers, but I think I've made the right decision and the best decision for me moving forward. Obviously with David Haye, who's been in, he's a two-weight world champion, and Richard Schaefer as well, started and running Golden Boy, who's now gone on to make Ringstar, which is which is on the rise. So I think I've made the best decision possible for my career going forward, and also having Ismael Salas, the best coach for me at this stage of my career.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Ismael Salas, the Cuban mastermind. Now, obviously, he's brought a few world champions through the ranks, but to my knowledge, English...
19.
19, you say?
Yeah.
Oh, that's shocking. I didn't know it was that many, but that's amazing. But to my knowledge, his English isn't the best. What's it like training with a guy of his capabilities and also a little bit of a language barrier?
No, there's no language barrier. You can speak good English.
Okay.
I know.
Good.
I know a bit of Spanish as well.
Oh, brilliant!
Poquito Spanish. But, yeah, we get on well. He's a great character, and he's teaching me and refining me, and worked really well. He works really well with me and the rest of the guys. MVP, Michael Vernon Page, and Willie Hutchinson, and of course David Haye and Joe Fournier. The gym's buzzing, and I did some workout in Vegas and LA with Jorge Linares, who fought with Luke Campbell. So that was a great experience and great sparring for me. And it was great to see him in his element in his home gym in Vegas.
And it's a bit of a strange scenario because your trainer also trains your promoter. Obviously, David Haye has got a huge night ahead of him come December. How's he looking in the gym at the moment, Joe? And how do you see that rematch playing out?
Well, I thought the first outing they did, I thought it was going to go all David's way. He was going to land a big haymaker, but obviously his Achilles went, which was unlucky. But I've seen him in the gym now, and he's looking better than ever. He's bouncing around again, and obviously the work he's doing with Salas is he's even refining him. So it's a great atmosphere around the gym. Sorry.
And the final question before I get on to your fight itself. Since the announcement that you'll be turning pro, I know that you've sparred a few guys. I know that you had a little bit of a move around with Tyson Fury. What was that like, and who else have you been sparring lately, names that we may know of, Joe?
I went to Ireland. I sparred Mike Perez, which was a great spar. It was a very fun spar. He's explosive Cuban southpaw. I sparred with Tyson Fury for a couple of rounds. That was really awkward. He's like switching. He's a big man, so it's very awkward and unorthodox. Hit him with some mad shots, and he's really hard to hit. So and that was when he was like 20 stone. So I can't only imagine when he's like in fighting shape how hard he would be to spar. Also Hughie Fury, his cousin. When I went to the States in Vegas and LA, I sparred with Bermane Stiverne, and also Dominic Brazil and a couple other heavyweights. Also the guy who fought Tony Yoka last. Yeah, he was great sparring too.
That's brilliant. There's some really impressive names there. You haven't sparred Daniel Dubois at all, have you?
Of course I have, because I've been on the GB setup and he was on the GB team as well. But I was quite surprised when he made the step and turned pro. And also I've done hundreds of rounds with anti-AJ and Fraser Clark.
Yeah, I'd pay to see the Dubois sparring. That's he's really looking good right now. But right, getting on to your pro debut now. You're taking on Ian Lewison this Friday. A good fighter, definitely not a journeyman. Why Ian Lewison, Joe?
Well, I like to create history because I'm probably the first person to have a main event 10-rounder in my debut. I like to think I'm creating a bit of history there. But yeah, it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be a great fight on Friday night. So, those of you can get down there, come and support, and if not, watch on Channel Dave.
Absolutely. And what do you know about Ian as a fighter? He seems like the kind of guy that if he's dedicated, he's a very dangerous fighter. This seems like a potential banana skin so early on in your pro career. Yeah,
he's very tough, very durable. He's got knockout power, so. It'd be very dangerous for the first 3 rounds, so I'm going to have to be on my toes. But I believe that I'm very experienced and at that level where he shouldn't really pose a problem for me.
And when we had Ian Lewison on our show a couple of weeks back, the fight had been announced, and I asked him, what does he think of you and how's he feeling, etc. And he told me, in his words, that he's ready to take your head off and hang it on his wall. A bit of an outlandish statement. How do you respond to that one, Joe?
We'll see fight night.
Simple as that.
Like to see him try. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't win fights by talking, do you?
Nope. Not at all. Now, fighting a guy like Lewison on your debut, it gives off the impression that you will want to try to move quickly. Obviously, you're 32 years old at the moment. Will you be looking at being fast-tracked into some kind of title shot in rapid succession?
Well, I am being fast-tracked, and I believe I'm at that level. I've sparred with the best, and I've had the experience in World Series boxing, so I believe I'll be victorious on Friday night.
And another thing that Richard Schaefer told me last week was that he wants to put a boxing card on sometime next year to showcase both yourself and Tony Yoka, his heavyweights. And I think he's got another heavyweight he's signed as well. He wants to put all the heavyweights on one card. That would be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to that. Have you been told about that? It sounds good.
No, but it sounds amazing. Obviously, Richard Schaefer is a genius, and I'm happy to be signed with him.
Yeah, no, he is the man. He is the man. Anything that you want to tell our listeners at all just before we let you go, Joe?
I don't know. Just follow my journey. I'm on Insta, Joe Joyce Official, Twitter, Joe Joyce, and also Facebook. I've got a Facebook page. So yeah, just follow me and watch me on Dave or come and support.
Excellent stuff. Okay, listen, Joe, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time. Best of luck on Friday, and we'll catch up sometime afterwards for sure.
Oh, thanks a lot.
Okay, now it's part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the preview part, but as always, before we get into the preview part, we fly over to Ayaz, who's already waiting with a list of the latest news from the boxing world. Ayaz, take it away.
Okay, super middleweight Commonwealth boxing champion Rocky Fielding has been ordered to defend his belt against Vijender Singh.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Obviously Vijender Singh's nation, part of the Commonwealth. Rocky Fielding will. I don't know. This is a bit of a strange one, because I'm not quite sure if Vijender Singh is still being promoted by Frank Warren. If that's not the case, then is he being promoted by some kind of rich Indian promoter who may win a purse bid and possibly, or may offer Rocky loads of money to go and defend in India? That'd be mad. Will Rocky vacate? It's interesting. I mean, I'm happy to see Vijender Singh fighting for the Commonwealth title and fighting against somebody who we've heard of. That'd be good if it does happen. But yeah, we'll really find out how good Vijender Singh is or how good Rocky Fielding is. He looked really good last time out. But hopefully the fight happens. It's just, it could happen in India and it could happen at the Eka Arena. We really don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, we will watch out for what does happen. Anthony
Joshua's fight with Cuba Arias has been cancelled, but Anthony Joshua will now face Carlos Takam as a replacement.
Yes, obviously Kubrat Pulev has he's come out with a shoulder injury. He will be gutted about that. He was set to make about £5 million. They've drafted Carlos Takam in. I think that Eddie Hearn said he actually did a deal with Takam just in case the chance that Pulev would get injured or anything like that. He did a deal with him about 7 weeks, 7 weeks before. And apparently, Carlos Takam was actually going to fight on the Monaco card that Eddie Hearn's got coming up. So, he was pretty much getting ready to fight, like a week later. So, yeah, I mean, I'm pleased that they got an opponent wrapped up so quick, but I'm not a big Takam fan. I don't really think he's got a chance. I would 10 times prefer to see the Pulev fight. I think that would have been a good fight, whereas I think this is just going to be rubbish. If I bought tickets for the fight, I'd want a refund, to be honest. I think Takam probably gets knocked out in about 5 rounds. He's obviously quite tough. He went the distance with Joseph Parker, but I don't think he's... I think Joshua won't have any problems with him, really. What I will say as well, credit to Eddie Hearn, though. That's a clever piece of promoting, really. Good job that he actually had, Takam already sort of, ready to jump in case this happened, because, he got it right. He got it right, and it did happen. And he had no idea about any possible injury that may come up or anything from what he said, and he basically just turned around and said, I just wanted to completely insure myself, if you like, because we had this big stadium in Wales that there's going to be like 80,000 people there or whatever, and he just wanted to make sure that it could definitely could happen, just to make sure that if anything happened they could quickly get someone in to replace him. So very clever stuff there from Mr. Hearn. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's not going to be as good of a fight, and I might not even buy it now, to be honest. I mean, the undercard's not great, but I probably won't buy it now that this guy's jumped in, because Takam's very negative, nothing exciting about him. But hopefully he gives Joshua a good fight, but I really don't see it.
On that same card, Dillian White will face Robert Helenius.
Yeah, obviously Robert Helenius, he's been known around the European scene. I remember he got a gift decision against Derek Chisora quite a few years ago now. I quite like Helenius, but I think that, I don't know, it's a hard fight really to call. I mean, I think Dillian will probably win because I think he's a little bit fresher. I think Helenius hasn't really done nothing for quite a while. But it's actually an alright fight. I mean, stylistically, I think it could be a proper bore fest. Don't get me wrong, but it's a hard fight to pick. I mean, a lot of people won't really know who Helenius is or anything like that, some of the casual fans. So I'm sure they're thinking Dillian White's going to absolutely smash him. But that's a hard fight to call, actually. I might, I think that probably goes a distance in all honesty. But yeah, that could be an interesting fight. I don't mind that fight, to be honest. That's a more of a 50-50 fight than the main event for sure. I'd probably rather watch that. But yeah, that's it for that one.
An agreement has been reached for Billy Joe Saunders to face David Lemieux on December 16th in Montreal, Canada.
Yes, obviously, to go over to Canada and defend your WBO world title is one thing, but against a huge puncher like David Lemieux is another. It's quite simple, this fight, to pick out. I don't think that Lemieux can win on points. I think, Billy Joe's very crafty, obviously southpaw and all that. But if David Lemieux lands on you, he will put you out. And I think that the same thing kind of counts for Billy Joe. He could be knocked out here. He's definitely showing balls to go on the road. It's just, I'm a bit surprised that it's happening in Canada, really. I was looking forward to possibly going to his next fight in the UK, so I'll have to wait till next year to go to his next fight, I suppose. But no, it's a tough fight. Listen, it's a really, really, really tough fight. I've been calling for this fight for a while. I'm happy it's happening. And it's a bloody hard fight to pick, in all honesty. And
finally, Frank Bruno has been given a boxing license to become a trainer.
Yeah, I didn't actually know this until you just said it there, Ayaz. But yeah, I mean, that's interesting. I know that he not long ago wanted to make a boxing comeback. If he's now got a license as a trainer, it's going to be interesting to see what he can do or who he's going to work with. I don't know. It's weird. I know that he was a good boxer. He's obviously former heavyweight world champion, but he never really struck me as a guy that, had all that kind of knowledge in the corner, like, that could give brilliant advice and bring through a world level guy, like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Listen, I could be completely wrong, but I don't know. That I'm not sure that's going to be a brilliant move, but we'll have to wait and see. He's a good guy. We wish him all the very best, that's for sure.
That's it for the news.
Okay, Ayaz, thank you very much. Moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to try to go through this a little bit quicker. Starting at the Durham Armory in Durham, North Carolina. That's probably Durham or something like that, but that one's over in the USA. There's one fight to mention over here. Basically, the heavyweight undefeated prospect, son of Hasim Rahman. It's, of course, Hasim Rahman Jr. 2-0. He takes on a man called Joe Coates, who's making his debut. So, all the very best to Hasim Rahman Jr., friend of the show. Moving over now to the Monte Carlo Resort and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. This one is a Golden Boy Promotions show. It's going to be on ESPN, if I'm not mistaken, in the States. It's really gone under the radar. I bet you didn't even know about this, Ayaz. Gabriel Rosado, 23-11, takes on Glenn Tapia, 23-4. Obviously, we last saw Glenn Tapia against, I think I last saw him against Jason Quigley. He got beaten up pretty bad. But then he gave a decent account of himself. I can't really remember that fight too clearly. I remember I watched it. But, yeah, Gabriel Rosado, I mean, I've never really rated him too much. His record's now 23-11. Glenn Tapia, 23-4. Obviously, Rosado's been in there with the tougher guys. That's probably why he's got the more losses. But it's two guys that are shot a little bit, in my honest opinion. I think both guys are shot. I think that it could make for a great fight, though. That's the kind of thing, that's the thing with these two kind of warriors that are shot. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be, no one's going to go on, hopefully no one goes on to be in a big fight past this, but it's a 10-rounder. It could be a bit of a war, but I think, unbelievably, I think that Gabriel Rosado's probably got a little bit more left in the tank than Glenn Tapia, I think. Glenn Tapia's had a hard career, And I'd probably go with Gabriel Rosado, but I'm not going to be in a rush to watch it, in my honest opinion. Moving over now to Singapore. There's just one fight I want to mention. There's a guy on this card called Sirimongkon Iafuam. I'm probably saying that wrong. And I just wanted to point out his record is 92 wins and 3 losses. You know, even though he's only lost 3 fights, he's only been stopped once. And unbelievably, he hasn't been stopped for 20 years. He last got stopped in 1997. And he's actually fighting for the vacant IBO Asia Pacific Super Welterweight title against a guy who's 34-6 with 2 draws. But this guy, he's 95 fights into his career. You never see that anymore. He's 40 years old. He's a former world champion, but that's an amazing record. He must have the longest fight record out of any active fighter right now. If someone can find somebody that's actually fought longer than that, I think we'll have to give him a prize. So if someone is still active who's had more than... No, in fact, that's silly. There's journeymen out there that have had like 154 fights. But no, an actual guy that's not a journeyman who's got 92 wins. I'd be very interested to see if somebody can find someone with a better record than 92-3. Moving over now to the Indigo at the O2, Greenwich, London, United Kingdom. Couple fights to mention on this bill. Dwayne Sinclair's on the bill. His record 6-0. His opponent yet to be announced. Adrian Martin's on the bill. His record 6-0. He's in a 4-rounder against a guy who's 1-5 with 1 draw. It's not a great card in all honesty. Nick Parper's on the bill. His record 4-1. Michael Venom Page, that's the guy called MVP. I know he's got a massive amateur. Sorry, not amateur. He's got a massive MMA background. He's making his debut in a 4-rounder against a guy who's 2-11 with 1 draw called Jonathan Castano. Willie Hutchinson, he's in a 4-rounder. He's actually the Scottish guy, if I'm not mistaken, who Richard Schaefer was telling me about last week. I don't know if you've listened to that interview. He was saying that Willie Hutchinson's like the best Scottish amateur of all time, and he's his nickname's the Braveheart, so I'm excited to see how he's going to get on. He's actually taken on a guy who's 10-27 with 1 draw, so he's taken on a guy who's had 38 fights in his pro debut. That's not a bad start there, really. Also on the bill, John O'Donnell, 32-2, defends his English welterweight title against Temuka Mucha. That's actually a really, really good fight. I'm looking forward to that. If you didn't know, this is actually a David Haymaker Promotions card, of course. In association with Richard Schaefer and Ringstar. And also on the bill, of course, Joe Joyce, a man that we spoke to earlier on in the show, of course. His record 0-0. He's making his debut. He takes on Ian Lewison in a 10-rounder on his debut. Amazing stuff. Ian Lewison, no mug. His record 12-3 with 1 draw. And we know that Ian Lewison told me a couple of weeks back in another interview, he told me he's ready to take Joe Joyce's head off and hang it on his wall. So we will have to wait and see how that one plays out. All the very best of luck to both guys there. Moving over now to Germany. One fight to mention on this bill. Erkan Tepe, 17-2, takes on Evgenios Lazaridis, whose record's 11-0. That should be okay. That's a 10-rounder. Moving over now to Norway. Cecilia Baracus, 31-0, puts her IBF, IBO, WBA, WBC and WBO World Female Welterweight titles on the line against Michaela Lauren, whose record is 29-4. That's a 10-rounder there, of course, 10 2-minute rounds. All the very best to Cecilia Baracus and Jonathan Banks. Moving over now to the SSE Arena, Belfast, Northern Ireland, United Kingdom. A few fights to mention on this bill. Again, it's not a great card, but it's probably the best card that Sky have put on for the last couple shows. I mean, the Burns Crawler was terrible. The one before that, I forgot off the top of my head at the minute. That one wasn't good. This one's probably the better bill, I suppose. Of course, it's got a proper world title on the line here. 2 world titles on the line. Anthony Fowler's on the bill. His record 3-0. His opponent yet to be announced. Josh Kelly's on the bill. His record 3-0. His opponent yet to be announced. That's an 8-rounder for Josh Kelly. Also, Tyrone McKenna, he was supposed to take on, I think it was Tommy Coyle, but unfortunately he's had to pull out with an injury, so Reynold Garrido steps in. It's really took the excitement out of Tyrone McKenna's fight, really, but I like Tyrone McKenna. His record 14-0 with 1 draw. Reynold Garrido 19-16 with 2 draws. That's a 10-rounder there. James Tennyson 19-2 puts his WBA International Super Featherweight title on the line against Darren Trainer, 14-1. That should be okay. Paul Hyland Jr. 16-0 takes on Stephen Orman. That's a really good fight. Stephen Orman 24-4. This one's for the IBF East and West Europe lightweight title. I think Paul Hyland Jr. is quite a good fighter. I think he can make a statement here. Stephen Orman, obviously, I want to say, like, he's been around the block a while, even though he hasn't had the best of careers. He's a tough guy, and I think he's a bit of a name, especially that part of Britain, Northern Ireland over there. I think Stephen Orman's got a good name over there. And the main event, of course, Ryan Burnett 17-0 puts his IBF World Bantamweight title on the line against Zanat Zakhayanov 27-1. Zanat Zakhayanov puts his WBA Super World Bantamweight title on the line. A unification in Ryan Burnett's first defence, which is quite amazing. Obviously, Zanat Zakhayanov trained by Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton, for a short spell, was actually training Ryan Burnett. Ryan Burnett, obviously, with Adam Booth now. It's a hard fight to call, isn't it, Ayaz? We saw Ryan Burnett do really well against Haskins, but Haskins was awful that night. We haven't seen Ryan Burnett since. Zanat Zakhayanov's probably fought the better guys, in all honesty. And obviously he's actually got a loss. He's been down, I think, a couple of times. Ryan Burnett, I don't think is the biggest puncher. It's really hard to call. Could it be a little bit too early for Burnett? I wouldn't be surprised anyway, it turns out.
I can tell you for a fact, it's a tough fight. It's obviously, after winning the IBF straight away, he's gonna have a he's having a unification fight, and it's Zakhayanov as well. Zakhayanov's got 18 knockouts, and Ryan Burnett's got 9 knockouts. To be honest, if I'm going to go for a win, I'm going to go for Ryan Burnett points win, because he's fighting at both us at his home. Obviously, Zakhayanov is a good fight, but to be honest, Ryan Burnett's going to win this fight, I've got a feeling. And Ryan Burnett is a very good fighter, and he's got a very good relationship with his trainer, Adam Booth. And obviously, with that, he's going to push, and I've got a feeling he's going to win on points in front of his home crowd.
I mean, yeah, I didn't ask our Twitter listeners or anything about our Twitter followers, I should say, or anything about a prediction league. So we won't do the prediction league on it. But all I will say is I really wouldn't be surprised if Zanat Zakhayanov ends up winning, and if he does, I reckon probably on points, even though it's in Northern Ireland. But all the very best to Ryan Burnett. I really like him, man. I think he's a really good fighter with a great future. Moving over now to the first direct arena, Leeds, Yorkshire. It's a bit nuts that Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn have both got a card on the same night, but we have to deal with this a few times now. Who's on this bill? Jack Massey 12-0. He is a undefeated cruiserweight. I think he's ranked above Isaac Chamberlain in the British rankings, if you like. I'd like to see him fight. I haven't really seen much of Jack Massey. I haven't seen anything of Jack Massey, if I'm honest. Jack Bateson's also on the bill. His record 1-0. He takes on Kamil Jawarek, who is 4-7. That's it for that one. Also on the bill, Tommy Langford. He's back in the ring since being knocked out by Kurt Sidsley. I don't think he's fought since. His record 18-1. He's in a 6-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced. Zelfa Barrett's finally fighting for a title. It's for the vacant English super featherweight title. Zelfa Barrett 18-0. He takes on Chris Conwell 9-2. Hopefully, Zelfa Barrett wins this one. I really like Zelfa Barrett. I think he's technically very good, but I want to see him stepped up. He's taking too long around the journeyman scene, I feel. Not saying Chris Conwell's a journeyman. I'm just saying that he needs to step it up a little bit now, Zelfa. Also on the bill, Leon Woodstock 9-0 steps up against Craig Poxton. All the very best to Leon Woodstock. He's making the jump here, and he could potentially be 10-0 after this fight. That's a 10-rounder there. Also on the bill, Josh Warrington 25-0 takes on Dennis Shelan. I think I've been calling him Dennis Sealam for about 5 years. His record 18-0 with 2 draws, so somebody's O's got to go here. Hopefully it's not another draw for Shelan. And, I think Josh Warrington shouldn't really have much problem with him. I know that Josh Warrington's in the same gym as Isaac Lowe. Isaac Lowe would rather be in there against Shelan. And unfortunately that hasn't happened. But no, Josh Warrington, I think he's going to look good beating him. But then we need to see him really stepped up, because Josh Warrington's really a guy that, for me, has been in a good position for quite a while, but hasn't really capitalised on it. And the main event, Tyrone Nurse, 35-2 with 2 draws, takes on Jack Catterall, 18-0. Tyrone Nurse puts his British super lightweight title on the line. This is a really, really good fight. A 12-rounder, of course. Really hard fight to pick. It really, really is. Obviously, Jack Catterall he looked really good in some of his fights, and then he looks really bad in some of his other fights. Tyrone Nurse, he's a hard puzzle to solve, if you like. I don't think he really does anything spectacular. I think he just does the basics well. He's he's a little bit negative. Well, he's very negative, I feel, Tyrone Nurse. It's a hard fight to call. But I tell you what, if Jack Catterall comes through on this one, then he really will be something special. I'm sure of it. His record 18-0, as I said there. Tyrone Nurse 35-2 with 2 draws. Flying over now to the United States at the Armory in San Francisco, California. A couple fights to mention on this bill. Devin Haney, 17-0, takes on Carlos Cardenas, who's 22-14 with 1 draw. That's a 6-rounder. All the very best to Devin Haney. Also on the bill, Carrion Mayfield. His record 19-4 with 1 draw. He takes on a guy who's 10-0 called Miguel Dumas. Could be an upset there. That's a 6-rounder there. Moving over now to the Prudential Center in New Jersey, USA. This is the fight card that Richard Schaefer was talking about on last week's show. The card that he's promoting. Who's on this bill? Matthias Masternak, his record 39-4. He takes on Stevens Bujaj, who's never heard of, but his record 16-1 with 1 draw. Also on that bill, Maciej Sulecki, that's the Polish guy who's 25-0. He's in a 10-rounder against Jack Kulkai. That's a really, really good fight. Of course, we saw him recently against Demetrius Andrade. He come up short that night, but this is a really, really good fight for him. Good stage to be on as well. And of course, the main event is the cruiserweight version of the World Boxing Super Series. The IBF World Cruiserweight titles also at stake in this one. Murat Gassiev, 24-0, takes on Krzysztof Włodarczyk, 53-3 with 1 draw. Włodarzyk's been writ off a few times, and he comes back and ends up, pulling off a shocking win. I don't think he's going to do the same against Gassiev. I think Gassiev's probably one of the favourites to win this tournament as well. He's looking like a beast right now. That should be a great fight. That one, I'm not sure what channel that's on. I'm hoping we get to see that on ITV box office for free. I'm hoping so. I haven't heard anything. Moving over now to the Turning Stone Resort and Casino in Verona, New York. We're trying to go through this a little bit quicker. Jezreel Corrales on the bill, 22-1, puts his WBA Super World Super Featherweight title on the line against Alberto Mercado, whose record is 18-0. I don't know much about Mercado. Corrales, good fighter, should be a decent fight, I suppose, but the one I'm really looking forward to on this bill, Demetrius Andrade, 24-0, takes on Alantis Fox, 23-0 with 1 draw. We've had obviously Alantis Fox on the show a couple weeks ago. He's the guy who's 6'4", but he's unbelievably making middleweight. And Demetrius Andrade obviously going up in weight for this one. So both guys undefeated, both guys 24 fights under their belt. So it should be really good. Both guys got good amateur pedigrees. It's a 12-rounder. I absolutely cannot wait for this fight. I'm so intrigued, man. I'm really, really intrigued. It's going to be on HBO, that one. Yeah, that's a hard fight to call. I really like Andrade. I really do. I've always really liked Andrade. We had him on the show. He was really charismatic. And of course, Alantis Fox, I've only just got to know him. I didn't know much about him, but he seems like a really nice guy as well. So, I'm not sure who I want to win, but I just want the right man to win, and I just want the best man to win. So may the best man win. God bless both of you. Moving over now to Sunday, the 22nd of October, this Sunday, and we're coming down to the final couple bills now. One fight to mention in the Star Casino in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. Who's on this bill? Sakio Bika, former world champion. Boy, oh boy, I didn't even know he was still fighting. Yeah, Sakio Bika 33-7 with 3 draws, fights for the vacant WBC International Silver Super Middleweight title against Gerd Ajetovic, whose record's 31-16 with 1 draw. Hopefully Sakio Bika can roll back the clock and pick up the W there. Also on this bill, Tim Tszyu is on the bill. That is the son of Kostya Tszyu. Of course, the Ricky Hatton fans will remember him. The son of Kostya Tszyu, Tim Tszyu here. He's actually... I've seen quite a few clips of him on the bag and stuff. He looks quite exciting. His record's 6-0 at the moment. I wasn't even aware that he'd had that many fights. I thought he was probably only 1-0 or 2-0, but he's 6-0. He fights for the vacant WBC Asian Boxing Council Continental Super Welterweight title. That's a mouthful there. He takes on Wade Ryan, who's 14-5 in a 10-rounder there. That's it from Australia. Now moving over to the final bill to mention. I didn't even know it was happening this week. Otherwise, I would have probably got the guy on this week's show. We will hopefully speak to him next week. We will now go over to Kokujikan in Tokyo, Japan. It's going to be on ESPN2 in the US. Obviously, this is Tekken Promotions along with Top Rank, Bob Arum. The one fight to mention on this bill for me, even though it's a triple world title card, Kenshiro's on the bill defending his title, Daigo Higa's on the bill defending his world title, but I'm going to actually talk about the fight that we have here. Hassan Ndam, 36-2, defends his WBA world middleweight title against Ryoto Murata, 12-1. Of course, he was 12-0, but he lost his 0 to Hassan Ndam in the last fight, which was also in Japan. A lot of people were really angry with the result. Apparently, Hassan Ndam was really lucky to get it. He's a great guy, Hassan Ndam. If you've listened to this show a few times, you've probably heard him on the show before. He's a lovely, lovely fella. I wish him all the very best. Of course, he's not very happy with the fact that he's kind of been treated like, it's his fault that he got the decision. He believes he won. He believes he's the rightful winner. It's not his fault. You can't blame him. The judges saw him winning, and hopefully he can pull off the win here and do it a little bit more clearly so people can't moan this time around. That's what his goal is. His record 36-2. Hopefully this time next week it will be 37-2. And Ryoto Murata, of course, really good, amateur. He will be looking to right the wrong. So it's a really interesting fight, that one at middleweight, of course. But all the very best to my man Hassan Ndam, a lovely, lovely fella. And that's really it from the preview. And we've done the news, we've done the reviews, we've done the previews. We brought you guest number 1, and we will now bring you, just before we wrap up part 2, guest number 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated middleweight contender, Mr. Luis Arias. Luis, once again, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys having me again.
It's always a pleasure with you, my friend. So, Lewis, we spoke to you last after your last fight, a fantastic win for yourself. Now, of course, you're taking on Daniel Jacobs on November the 11th in New York on HBO. What do you make of Daniel Jacobs as a person and Daniel Jacobs as a fighter, Lewis?
As a person, I think he's a great guy. He has a great story. He's overcome a lot in his career. He's gotten himself to the top of the sport. He's fought on HBO pay-per-view. He's fought on, big networks. So, he's doing his thing, But as a fighter, I go by the facts, He's never been a world champion. He's a good, solid contender, and he's a good name, But is he unbeatable? No, he's already been beat. He's already been dropped. He's already been knocked out. So for an undefeated up-and-coming guy like me, I should be able to beat a former world title challenger. These are the type of fighters that I need to beat in order to become a world champion.
And you say there that he hasn't been a world champion. Obviously, we know that he held the WBA regular belt. Is that a belt that you don't consider a full title?
Nah, don't consider that a real belt. I mean, it's a real belt, don't get me wrong, but it's not a world champion. You can't have 2 world champions in the same division. That makes no sense. I mean, you can have interim champions, you can have, regional champions, whatever, but 1 world champion per division. And everybody knows that. You don't need, specifics, and, every person knows there should only be 1 champion per division.
Fair point. A lot of people at the press conference, watching the press conference, a lot of people, both in the USA and the UK, thought that you were a little bit disrespectful to him. But surely you know this, that he's going to be, or he should be anyway, the toughest opponent of your life so far.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't disrespectful. I didn't call him out of his name. I didn't disrespect his family. I didn't disrespect his team. I didn't say nothing out of that was disrespectful at all. The only thing that I stated was facts. Everything that I said was a factual statement. I didn't lie about anything. I didn't call him out his name about anything. Everything that I said is supported by facts. So how can you be disrespectful if you're just simply stating facts? Should I have been screaming at him, and should I have went the way it didn't? I mean, who knows? But I didn't say anything disrespectful. The only thing that I said was clear facts. Like I said, you can go back and check everything that I said, look it up. I didn't say a lie. I didn't call him out his name. I simply stated facts.
And has Daniel Jacobs, in your opinion, fought a guy like yourself before? If not, what do you bring to the table that he hasn't seen before?
he's fought a guy similar, and he's lost. Both the guys that are similar to me, to my style of fighting, he's lost. You know what I mean? He's lost to them. He's had trouble. You know, I mean, I just feel like that record is a little, you know, pampered. You know, he just fought a lot of guys that were not going to give him any tough, you know, challenges. And but I do still, although he's supposed to be my toughest fight on paper, I feel like I'm gonna be a tough fight for him as well. You know, I'm young, I'm strong, I'm undefeated, very confident, and I know I belong. So November 11th, I'll prove that.
And at the press conference, you obviously said, down goes Jacobs. He's been down a couple of times in his career, as we all know. Do you anticipate he'll touch the canvas once again November 11th?
Yeah. You know, unless he just fights defensive and he decides to run. I mean, I see it. You know, like, it's going to be hard for him not to get caught. Like, I'm going to catch his chin. I'm going to hit him hard. I'm going to jump on him. I mean, I guess we'll see, man. You know, if he fights all defensive and running, then it's going to be hard to put him down when you're running away. But if he decides to sit there and trade, you know, it's a very good chance that he gets caught.
And the last time we spoke, I know that you told me that you felt you needed a big name next. You've got that here. How happy are you to get this opportunity to fight a name like him? And also, if you win this fight, you know, how good will it do your career as well?
You know, I'm very happy to just, you know, even be simply approved to be a main event on HBO. You know, like, even getting to this level is hard. You know, even getting to the platform is very hard. You know, not a lot of fighters, you know, have even got to the platform. So it's truly a blessing. You know what I mean? Like, you know, my career hasn't been the best, you know, but I kept at it. I kept winning. I kept fighting. And now I'm here. You know, it's all about timing, and I think this is a perfect time. You know what I mean? Like you said, if I win, I already get in the mix. But if I come out there November 11th and I knock Daniel Jacobs out, I become a star and the number one contender overnight. So I obviously know the type of opportunity this is, and I'm ready for it. You know, and I'm happy that I'm here.
And, you know, you say there that, you know, you're happy for the opportunity. You're happy to be approved as a main event. You've really done things the hard way. I'm not just saying that because you're here, but obviously we know you were with Floyd. Floyd ended the contract with you. You've had it hard, but finally I feel you're getting what you deserve here. I'm very pleased for you. I'm not just saying that because you're on the phone.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can go look at my records. Go look at my records. Go look at the opponents I fought, their records, their weights. And go see how hard it really has been. You know what I mean? Like, I've been fighting tough opponents. I took tough fights early in my career. You know, I'm 4-0 fighting guys with 20 some fights. You know, 10-0 fighting guys with 20 knockouts. So, like, I haven't been babied. I haven't been pampered. You know, I haven't got to fight an old veteran guy on main event national television. You know, I've had to come the hard way. I've had to fight my way to here, and it'll show November 11th. You know that I fought my way to get that opportunity, and I'll be ready.
Yeah, because a lot of people, like I say, that don't know the story. It's as you say again, like, you know, you said you haven't had the greatest of careers, but it's not your fault. It hasn't been your fault. It's just simply been, you know, a bit of bad luck outside the ring, I think. Yeah, the business. Yeah. You're nailing that. Yeah, that's 100% true. Now, obviously, Daniel Jacobs is now being promoted by UK's Eddie Hearn. Over here, some people like him, some people dislike him. What are the Americans thinking of Eddie Hearn?
Actually, I heard a lot of people in England don't like him. But it happens, you know. I think Eddie Hearn, you know, I think he's trying to do something good for the sport. I mean, you know, he's coming to America. I mean, we all know why he really is coming to America. But this fight, you know, will be broadcasted over in England, all over Europe, you know, because of Eddie Hearn. You know, like, Eddie Hearn, you know, he got a couple moves that he can make, and he can put back boxing on a platform for Americans that hasn't really been put before. You know, how many HBO main event fights have been shown live on England? You know, not all of them, but from an English promoter. I mean, I think he got a couple things up his sleeve that he could probably put together. I guess we're gonna have to wait and see how everything plays out with this November card. You know, but I see his vision. You know, and it's. You know, if everything goes, you know, accordingly, he could definitely make some moves.
And he has also been quoted, this is Eddie Hearn saying this, he actually said that Daniel Jacobs, in his opinion, is possibly the number one middleweight in the world. Now, a lot of people believe Danny Jacobs should have got the decision against Triple G, and I think Triple G, we all kind of feel, is the number one. So if you gave that fight to Danny Jacobs, then you'd probably say he's the number one. We haven't spoke since that fight. What did you make of that fight? Do you think Jacobs should have won?
He did not win that fight. No, he did not win that fight. Like, everyone is just, everyone thought he was going to get knocked out. So because he didn't get knocked out, that gave him a lot. Because he was able to survive 12 rounds, that's extra points. Because he was able to hit Triple G with a couple shots and use his athleticism to make Triple G not look as good, that helped him out a lot. But he did not win that fight. You can't win a championship fight moving backwards for 12 rounds. You can't beat a champion with three belts running away from him, picking your shots. Like real fighters know, like he wasn't really trying to fight Triple G. As soon as he got hit in the mouth, man, he got on that bike. You can't get credit for going on that bike and then just stopping and throwing a couple, slapping quick punches, looking good, looking fast, and then moving around again. Like, I didn't think he won the fight. Triple G clearly won the fight. He did put up a good fight. It was a great fight. But the champion won that fight.
Yeah, I think it was pretty close, but I definitely had it to Golovkin. Also, Golovkin, again, was in a really close fight last month. How did you have the Canelo-Golovkin fight?
It's another good fight. I had Triple G winning the fight, though. More aggressive. The champion, once again, the champion. You have to clearly beat the champion. But it was a good close fight. And, I'm not mad at the draw. But just like everyone else, everyone's just raising their eyebrows at the one scorecard. If that one scorecard would have been 115, 113, no one would be complaining about the fight. But the rematch makes sense. It's great for the sport. It was a great fight. They were going at it toe-to-toe. And the rematch will be just as good.
We certainly hope so. And now I'm going to throw this question at you, completely unexpected. I'm just going to give you no warning, throw it straight on you. This week, we see a junior middleweight world champion move up to middleweight. He's invading the division. That, of course, is Demetrius Andrade. He's taking on, in his first fight, Alantis Fox. That's a guy who's about 6'4". It's unbelievable that he makes middleweight. Both men undefeated. Have you got any kind of opinion on that fight at all? Do you know both guys well?
I know both guys. I think that fight's going to be a sloppy fight. I see that Demetrius Andrade doesn't have a choice but to make moves and have to move up in weight and do all this extra stuff. So, but to be honest, it's going to be a sloppy fight, ugly fight. But, good luck to Andrade. And good luck to both of the guys. I think it's going to be a bad style matchup. You'll see.
Okay, we certainly will. Right, I'm out of questions. Anything you want to tell our listeners at all before we let you go, Lewis?
No. Just to all the UK fans, appreciate all the support. To everyone who's listening, who's been supporting me, appreciate the support. I urge everyone to really do their homework prior to picking and choosing who's going to win this fight. Like, if you really go back and do your homework on who Luis Arias is and what I've accomplished and what I've done, who I fought, and how I beat them, you'll see that this is really a 50-50 fight. So, like I said, I'm looking forward to shocking the world in November, and I'll be ready.
Okay, Lewis, it's always great talking with you, my friend. You know that. We wish you the best of luck for November the 11th. Thank you for your time, and we'll speak again very soon.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and that wraps up episode 105 of the BoxHard Podcast. It's been another informative show, I'd like to think. We were also joined by another fresh face and also a man that our listeners know very well on this show. Those men, of course, the exciting heavyweight silver medalist Joyce and the undefeated and super confident middleweight contender Luis Cuba Arias. You, the listeners, are now in the lead on the prediction league, so we've took a little break from it in order to regroup. We're going back to the drawing board, as they say. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Summer has been Ayaz Summer. We hope you've enjoyed this week's show, and I almost forgot, actually. We are now on Facebook. We've actually made a page on Facebook called BoxHard Podcast. I've got absolutely no clue how to use it, so please like it or follow it or whatever it's called. Remember to leave us a review on iTunes if you do get the time. Enjoy your weekends, people. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week.